BZZZ. BZZZ. Welcome Pipske Hershey. Welcome Pipske Hershey. Welcome Louise 4. Welcome the Brian Boru. Welcome Louise 4. Welcome the Brian Boru. Welcome Louise 4. Welcome G Glock. Welcome G Glock. Welcome Clisare. Welcome G Glock. Welcome Clisare. Welcome Clisare.
Hello. Am I here? I'm like looking at my stream in another window and it's taking ages to update. Hello. Oof.
Welcome Itsifa.
Welcome. Yes, I'm here. I can just ignore the fact that for some reason.
Welcome,
There we
Saladin.
go. Yes, so quick catch up. I'm learning how to use Restream to stream on 2 different platforms. So I'm streaming on the YouTube channel for the first time ever, my Clisare Live YouTube channel, and I'm streaming on Twitch as usual. The chat you see on the screen is Twitch, and yeah, very excited. And what else? Sorry, I haven't
Welcome,
streamed
Papa
in a couple of
Bearman.
days. I had said I was going to do Monday, Wednesday, Friday in January, but Fionn has other ideas. So I just think you're going to need to follow on Twitch and put the notifications on to know when I'm live, because I don't know when I'm live until the day of. And today he was whining all day, and then as soon as Alex was like, I'll take over, he was like, Angel. I was like, oh, but that's fine, I'm gonna go stream. I'm gonna take this opportunity. I'm not gonna moan, I'm just gonna go. So I did. So I think this is a bit earlier of a time, but I think that this might be a better time than after bedtime, because again, I thought I was going to be able to stream no problem after bedtime, and we have had a week of him not wanting to go to bed. So, and then me being wrecked by the time we get him to bed. It's like 11 o'clock. It was midnight one of the nights. So he's very like his mother. So yeah, so don't worry, I'm not going to bore you with baby talk, but just to explain why I haven't been streaming and why I might stream at this earlier time, because at this time I can make Alex take them. And maybe I can do it a bit more regularly. Okay. Let me catch up with the chat here, because I took a bit longer to get started than I thought I was going to do. I went to make a cup of tea, and then I came back and my camera wasn't working, and then I had to basically just had to plug it in. It was actually just not plugged in. But anyway. Okay. Ryan Cole, welcome. That is the best loading screen ever. Thank you so much. Pipsy K, welcome. Louise, hello. Welcome back, Clare, and congrats on the new arrival. Wish I could catch this one. Haven't watched H3 in months for obvious reason. But interested to hear your take. So we'll hopefully catch a re-upload. Have a great evening. Louise, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out all the... I always cut out all the nonsense from the streams when I put them up onto YouTube afterwards. I like cut them down in the highlight using the YouTube editor. I might, depending on how much is to be cut out, I might download it and like do a little bit of a cut together version. I'll definitely cut out all this shy talk at the start and end and stuff like that. So it might be an easier rewatch is basically what I'm saying. I have been getting really into, over the Christmas break, I got really into watching Papa Gut and Papa Gut react to things. And now he does very little editing of the stream itself, but he like does a little intro. And I was like, ooh, that's a good idea. So I might do that. So anyway, that's all to say that it will hopefully be rewatchable pretty soon. And it will be literally rewatchable, as in... You'll be able to stomach rewatching it. Pipsy K, hope you don't mind a crazy American in chat. I do not. You're all very welcome. The Brian Boru, fantastic name. G Ihama, Conistol Brian. Ihua. G Clough, I opened the chat on YouTube just to drop a like and leave. Oh, the overlapping techno was a serious vibe with the way it lined up. Nice one. Thank you very much, Gurmila Mogath. And yeah, overlapping techno. Okay, so then that was me saying I had minor camera issues. Aoife, G Clough, welcome. Saladin, welcome. Pipsy K, fair play to you all for joining that bit earlier. Papa Bearman, hey, she had a baby, congrats. Here's to you maybe one day getting more than 4 hours of sleep. I hate saying this because I feel like every time I say this, people are like, fuck you. But he actually does sleep. Now, to be fair, you are right in that he will maybe every 3 or 4 hours in the middle of the night just like wake up and be like, wah, and then I'll just put his dolly back in and he'll go back to sleep. But for the most part, he sleeps through the night. And he does from about 4 a.m. to about 8 a.m. That is only 4 hours, Claire. My sense of time is so skewed. Yeah, you're right. Actually, it's not really 4 because between 2 and 4, he does that thing that babies do where they have a really, really loudly, they sleep really loudly. But I can still sleep. You know what I'm saying? I don't have to get up. Other than to sometimes put his dolly back in and then go back. But anyway, we're going to try and put him in his own room soon. So,
ad break.
We'll see. I don't know how any of this is going to go. Greetings, Michael. Saladin. Do not get me wrong. I like it, but it might be time to update the robo dancing short-haired Clare starting soon video. Yes. Someone else said they really liked the starting screen though, didn't they? Ryan Cole said that is the best loading screen ever. So can I match it, or will I just leave it? Maybe I could try and do a bit of a longer one now. At least you can still do an occasional try video, which we love. Yes, I can. Just your average dad, welcome. You have one of those babies that sleep, so do we. It's a blessing. It is. When he will go to sleep, he does sleep. I genuinely won't be complaining about that. You won't catch me complaining about that. Okay, so I just want to explain the title, I guess. There was a video over the break that was called A Nuanced. What is the title of my thing? Again, sorry, I'm getting used to using Restream. So normally it would say it on a... What's it called? A Nuanced Conversation, History and Public Perception. Yes, because I copy and pasted it. So there was a video that went up on YouTube over the Christmas break called A Nuanced Discussion on History and Public Perception. So I just stole the title for this. Now, I'm not intending to react to her video in this because, and I mean no disrespect by this, but it was so boring. Like it was really, really hard to get through. It was a lot of the same bollocks that people churn out over and over and over again about this topic, and I struggled to get through it. And the only way I got through it was by watching Papa Gut react to it, because he came up in I actually had never I think I'd heard of him, but I thought I was confusing Papa Gut with the guy who does the cartoons, Meat Canyon. I thought Papa Gut was Meat Canyon's live channel. I don't know how I confused those two, but I did. So anyway, so I figured that out, and I'm wondering, is there a better way for me to see the chat here? Because seeing myself in the screen is kind of putting me off. Maybe if I do this. Make it smaller. Yeah, we'll try that. Okay. Suppose we'll just get into it then, will we? I'm a bit thrown off because I would normally have a chat box in my OBS, but because I'm using Restream, so I can stream on multiple channels, that's gone now. So I keep looking to where my old chat would have been. I wonder, actually, would it be smart to put... Okay, you can't pop it out. Sorry, bear with me. I'm trying to get a better experience here for you slightly. Because if I can see chat better, I can engage with it easier. Okay. It won't let me do that. Sorry, again, bear with me. I'm trying to see, can I pop out the Twitch chat? Pop out Twitch chat. Pop out chat. Yes. Okay, so this should resolve it. Excellent.
Welcome, Heinrichstum.
Hello, Heinrichstum. Why do I always do that? Hello, Tom. I always read it like I'm just learning how to read. Heinrichs, Tom. Alrighty then. Okay, so let's get started. I had some notes. Does anybody need to know what the fuck I'm talking about? Does anyone not know what H3 is?
Welcome, Boardman Alyssa. Welcome, Just Brandy.
Sorry, I'm just opening my notes. I have some notes, but we can also just chat. Okay, Board Mona Lisa. Board Mona Lisa is one of the best usernames I've ever. That's fucking brilliant. That's such a good username. I'm so sorry I'm being so intense right now. And I think I've actually been going on to like Twitch streams and been really nervous for the streamer to talk to me. So I'm sorry if I'm being too intense about your username, but it's so good. Just Brandy, hello. Hi, Tom. Unless that's the baby name, I haven't got a clue. Okay, so we're starting at a point where a couple of people in the chat don't actually know what H3 is, which is great. Because I was kind of afraid to title it that, just because it's a very controversial topic at the minute, and I'm wading right in. And I wanted to talk about this. I'll explain to you what H3 is now in a second, but the reason that I want to talk about this is because there's been a lot of things on the internet that I've felt really strongly about and I haven't talked about. I've just stayed out of it, and I've taken in all the content that I can about the thing, but I've just stayed out of whatever it is. And I kind of like feel bad sometimes then when I do that, particularly with the Blake Lively stuff recently. I was checking out, I don't know if you're up to date on this, but basically Justin Baldoni, like Blake Lively's suing him, and she says that he did a targeted harassment campaign to basically cancel her, and that he started all that. And at the time I was like, why are people cancelling Blake Lively? I actually don't get it. Like, I think everyone's being really unreasonable. And I was like, and it's really weird timing that journalist released that video about her and of that really bad interview and all this. Have you turned the output of your mic way down? Had to turn volume up to 30 on my end. I haven't. It's up to 100 on my side, but is anyone else having problems? Oh God, let me see, how do I do this? Input. Sound input volume. There we go. I've turned it up, and that is the only way. It's the only place I can turn it up. So does that make it better? Twitch, you guys are saying you can hear me fine. So it might be a YouTube problem. But I have turned myself up a bit. Now, please let me know if I'm now like peaking or anything. I'll just minimize that in case I need to bring it up again. But let me know if I'm peaking. Maybe I can I hear myself? Testing. Input volume. There we go. I've turned it up, and that is the only. Yeah, it sounds okay to me. So hopefully. Yeah, it seems. It must be a YouTube thing, because the people who are complaining are all coming from YouTube.
Welcome,
so
Osro.
I don't know why that is. I have turned it up on my end. I'm doing the best I can here. If it's unwatchable, you can come over to Twitch. The link will be in the description, I think, of the live stream, won't it? It's twitch.tv/Clisare anyway. Saladin, you're on YouTube and you say it's fine now on YouTube. Okay, great. So yes, to, let's see, Saladina as well, who said, I've basically been steeping in all my thoughts and opinions. That's exactly what I've been doing. And I sort of feel like I need to get off my chest. I actually went to a friend's house. Sorry, I'm still finger twirling my hair here. I went to a friend's, not to their house. I went out for a coffee with a friend like last week, I think. And then on my way home, I got on the M50 in the wrong direction and I ended up in Wicklow. Because I didn't realise what I'd done, because I was like fully steaming, like thinking about all these things that have been happening over the Christmas and all these opinions I've been steeped in, and like, yeah. So I was like, right, look, I just need to get this off my chest. We need to have a conversation about it, and we need to figure out basically what's going on. And I'm not going to tell you like what to do or think or anything like that. Obviously, I just want to share my thoughts, I suppose, is the way I would put it. I'm almost finished finger curling my hair. Okay. So I guess before we get started, I should give you a quick explainer on what a H3 is, should I? H3 Productions was a YouTube channel. It still is a YouTube channel, you know what I mean? Ela and Ethan Klein are two content creators. They're married to each other. They had a channel called H3 Productions. They now have a channel called H3 Podcast, on which is the H3 show. And it's a video podcast. They create between, I would say, 8 to maybe 15 hours of content a week. It's basically a part-time job. Listen to it. And yeah, some of you know who they are. Yeah, just your average Joe. I haven't watched H3 in years. Lots of people haven't. He's like me. He's been on the internet forever, and so like me, he's had people grow out of him and move on. And some people have stuck around and some haven't. That's all relatively normal, really. But I just think it's really interesting what's been happening online, particularly in the last year, around H3, and specifically in relation to the topic of Israel and Palestine. And I think it's really interesting. And I just want to talk about it, especially as someone who, like, I'm Irish. So if you don't know, Ireland is like really pro-Palestine. I remember last year, like I'm trying to think like what's the best thing to start with. So Ireland would be quite pro-Palestine. Like, we'd be quite pro-Palestine in our policies, some of our policies. I don't know, like, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds here, but some of our policies would be very pro-Palestine and then others wouldn't be. Unfortunately, we do let American planes refuel in Shannon, and we have for a while, and a lot of people feel that is actually damaging our neutrality as a country. So a lot of people are actually against that, but it is the politicians are allowing it. Other ways we'd be very pro-Palestine, like the Irish populists are calling for the politicians to sign the Occupied Territories Bill, and actually the Israeli ambassador, now as well, the Irish public were calling for the Israeli ambassador to be expelled, which she wasn't, but based off of the idea that Ireland might sign the Occupied Territories Bill, she did actually leave of her own accord, which was great. And now they're planning, actually, or they're at least proposing, to turn the Israeli embassy in Ireland into a Palestine museum. So I just want to have this conversation, and I want you to have that background that as an Irish person, I would be very pro-Palestine. Another reason would be that the Irish were formerly colonised. So the Irish have kind of generational trauma, you can call it, around being colonised, and they tend to side with people who are being colonised or invaded or put upon or whatever. So like Team Ukraine, Team Palestine, stuff like that. So that's where the Irish would kind of stand on that. yeah, basically we've been colonized. We have been genocided. And we then empathize with that when we see that. And we try to push our politicians to translate that empathy into something real. Ireland recently joined the ICJ, I think it's called, case with South Africa against Israel. We haven't signed the Occupied Territories Bill yet. We didn't expel the Israeli ambassador, but she did leave, and the public are very happy about it. Yeah. So, like, even the fact that, you know, Ireland's famine was actually a manufactured famine. I do have a video about this on my YouTube channel. But it was a manufactured famine by the British. It wasn't that we had no food. It was that the only food that they were leaving us with were potatoes. And then when the blight happened, we were in trouble. So they were exporting all the other food that we had to sell. So stuff like that, you know what I'm saying? So like then when we see Palestine and they're saying that Israel's not letting food get in, or there's a manufactured famine there too, you know what I mean? Irish people just kind of are on. Yeah, you all get what I'm saying. Irish, pro-Palestine, pretty much across the board. So I wanted to have this conversation from that perspective, because I think that it's quite interesting that there is like a mainstream perception of H3 as not pro-Palestine, when I am a fan of H3 and incredibly pro-Palestine myself. And so I would not still be a fan if that were true. So yeah, just wanted to talk about it. I might look at these notes here because I don't want to babble too much. But yeah, so basically I have a couple of different groups of friends, right? And so there's lots of times people say to me, and actually someone said to me Tuesday, what podcast do you listen to? And I'm like, kind of embarrassed to say, because it's a very online podcast. So when I'm talking to people who are not terminally online, I struggle to explain what the H3 podcast is and why you should go listen to it. But the reason that I like it is because it's kind of like hanging around with a group of mates, just talking about internet stuff and stuff that's in pop culture and news that is happening. And so that's what I really love about it. But you do have to be kind of terminally online to understand quite a lot of the references that go on. Then when I'm with my terminally online friends, I'm almost embarrassed to like talk about it, because there's this idea, it kind of is propaganda. I hate to say the word propaganda, but the idea that Ethan is anti-Palestine is so ridiculously prevalent that I feel this like need to defend it constantly, which it really bothers me. So this is why we're gonna talk about it. And yeah, I stole the title because I thought that would get me some views. Okay, so a little bit of background then on Ethan. Ethan and Ela are married. Ethan is now the majority host of the H3 podcast. They used to host it together. She has a clothing company now called Teddy Fresh. She was only doing Fridays. She is now taking a break because of all of this conversation that's happening. And so Ethan is the primary host at the minute of the H3 podcast. At Jill O'Reilly, at Christmas I gave the butthole my white elephant. My cousin thought it was hilarious until he saw Ethan's name on the box and went stone and said, yeah, that's what a Zionist smells like. And my cousin literally could not explain why Ethan was actually a Zionist. So that is exactly why I want to talk about this. Because he is not a Zionist. Not in the way... We're going to get to that, because there's also a whole sub conversation about language here as well. But he is not anti-Palestine, and he is not pro Israel's behavior. We're going to get to that, don't worry. Okay, so I'm going to do a little... my notes here have a little bit of background on Ethan. I will say that his wife, Ela, and I think I'm like pronouncing that the Americanized way. Hila, I think, was how you pronounce it properly, but she said she doesn't mind people pronouncing it the American way, so Ela, I'm going to pronounce it that way. She is Israeli herself, and that's kind of where this gets quite complicated. And that's going to come into this whole thing. But first, I want to kind of have a broader strokes conversation, and then we're going to get down to the nitty gritty, okay? So Ethan, as far as I can figure out, Ethan's got people who hate him on the internet. Some of them are haters, and some of them just hate him for reasons, good reasons, okay? But the people who hate Ethan are generally from one of, as far as I can figure out, 6 camps. Okay. So first of all, there are the OG Fallen fans. These are Fallen fans who used to watch H3H3 productions when he was that bit more edgy, when he was kind of making fun of blue-haired SJWs, and then they realized that he was quote unquote woke, and then they were like, I used to like him before he got woke. Those are the OG. You can interrupt Tom just to ask about the baby, but this is going to make it way harder for me to edit later if I keep stopping. But he is well, thank you so much, and he has allowed me to stream tonight. Well, more so, actually, Alex has allowed me to stream tonight by taking him off my hands. Jill O'Reilly, the only 2 really Zionist things he does is that he thinks Israel should exist and a one-state solution isn't possible at this point. 2, he's an Israeli citizen by choice, which is also weird that I almost never see Ethan haters actually bring up. Yeah, so, okay. Ethan's haters, as far as I can figure out, come from one of these 6 camps, okay? So they're Fallen fans from the original H3H3 podcast productions channel who think he got woke. Those are quite quiet. They used to be very loud, but they're gone very quiet now because like they don't really care anymore. There is a meme on the subreddit though of women coming across, because actually H3's audience is primarily women now. Women coming across men in dating apps, and the man, they'll have like that they like H3 on their profile, and the man will go, oh, I used to like Ethan before he got woke. And then the woman will be like, that's a bit of a red flag, because that often that person will also hold some like right-leaning kind of conservative, sometimes borderline misogynistic views. And so it's become a meme on the subreddit when that happens to be like, oh, first red flag was that they didn't like Ethan because he got woke. So that's group 1, okay? So they are very quiet other than that meme on the subreddit that raises its head every now and again. The second camp then is Keemstar fans who are mad about a comment that Ethan left on a podcast years ago. So Ethan had Keemstar on his podcast and then afterwards wrote in the comment section, don't be mad at me for having him on the podcast or something. I know you hate him. We hate him too. Something like that. And Keemstar fans are still really mad about that. So that's second camp. The third camp are Trisha fans who, after the fallout of the Frenemies podcast, went with Trisha in the divorce, whether they were who knew who they started with, but they went to Trisha in divorce. They're mad he took that 5%. That's a I gotta stop these inside jokes. Hassan fans are the fourth bucket that I have here. So Hassan fans who I won't say they went with Hassan in the divorce, because actually when the Leftovers podcast broke up, it was actually quite amicable at first. So I would say they're more mad that Ethan called Hassan anti-Semitic than actually mad about the breakup of Leftovers, because that was actually quite reasonable. Then there are camp number 5 is people who call him a Zionist for seemingly no reason. Yep, we'll get into that. And then the last group out of the 6 are people who have genuine and fair criticisms, and they don't like him for a genuine and fair reason. This whole conversation is nothing to do with that one last camp. So I'm not talking about people who have genuine issues with some of the things that he said or done, because everybody has the right to not like somebody or not agree with them, and in a reasonable way. Does that make sense? So anybody who has like a reasonable, genuine, proper criticism, and he's done something or said something, or maybe they just don't enjoy his content, this video or this stream, I mean, is not about them. This is for the other five camps of haters. I had a big list here of like all the old controversies. I really don't want to like rehash over the old controversies, which is what the person who made the original video of this title, it's what she did. God, it was boring. So I'm just not going to go through that one after the other. If it comes up as part of our discussion, or maybe if we do it at the end, Jesus Christ, God, you know what I mean? Bringing up something that happened 8 years ago that was apologized for and moved on from, and he's shown that he has grown from it, and then going to, okay, then now this happened 7 years ago. I just don't really feel like doing that. So there are a lot of things, and if they come up in the course of the discussion, we can absolutely talk about them, but I have them listed out here, and I just, can't be bothered.
I'm hungry.
Going through it. But there's a lot of like things that get dragged up constantly, but the reason that everyone seems to hate him online now are that they accuse him of being a Zionist, essentially. Sorry, I'm just going to catch up quickly with the chat here. You can be Israeli and anti-Zionist. Absolutely, Tom. That is going to be one of the cruxes of the points we're going to discuss. I'm just catching up here. Yeah. Okay. So, yes, everyone is calling him a Zionist. We're going to do a quick aside about language. At first, no, we're not. Do you know what we're going to do? First of all, we're going to talk about where he actually stands. Wouldn't that make sense as a starting point? So my opinion on the Israel-Palestine would be that I would be pro-Palestine. Netanyahu is a war criminal. That we need like an immediate and permanent ceasefire, and that the only solution to the problem is a two-state solution. And Ethan Klein actually agrees with me on all of that. He has tweeted it. He has put it on Instagram. He has talked about it at length on his podcast. In fact, there was a period there where Leftovers with Hassan, they just never stopped talking about it. And I actually had to start skipping it because it was boring me at the time. That was just before the end. It was getting very repetitive. But he agrees with me on all that. Where I suppose we probably not even differ, but where he has said he believes Israel has a right to exist. Now, I'm not saying that I don't, but I'm learning about the history of Israel. And the other day I was watching a video on the history of Israel, and it said that Israel was given the land in the first place by Britain. And as an Irish person, it's very hard for me to recognise Britain's right to give away land that isn't theirs. But Israel's there now. There are people who live there now who identify as Israeli. You cannot get rid of the country. That is not a thing that you can do, in my opinion. So the only way forward is a two-state solution, I think. And again, that is also Ethan's stance, that two-state solution is the only solution. At least that's my understanding from what he said in his podcast, on his Twitter, on his Instagram. He is being called a Zionist. That's why, what I should say is that's why I continue to listen to the History podcast, because we don't have a fundamental difference in like our moral belief. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if he was like, yeah, absolutely, just wipe Palestine off the face of the map,
break.
then I couldn't watch the podcast anymore. Does that make sense? Because that would be too much of a... I wouldn't be able to get over that. But yeah, sorry, I'm letting my tea go cold. So, people call him a Zionist, and there's an incoming ad break. Apologies. Subscribe if you don't want to see it. We're going to have a quick aside about language, because where I feel that Ethan has gotten lost in the weeds a little bit, I don't mean that as a criticism, I merely mean that as an observation, because I understand now better than I did at the start why he's doing it. But at the start, I really couldn't understand why he was arguing about the definition of Zionist. So at the very start of this kind of becoming a really prevalent internet topic, we'll say 6 months ago, right? People were calling him a Zionist, and instead of saying I'm not a Zionist, he was saying most Jews are Zionists because most Jews believe that Israel should exist. And I was kind of saying, why is he getting caught in the weeds like that? Just say you're not a Zionist. But now I understand, kind of after, months and months of this, he is right when he points out that people on Twitter in particular, but on social media in general, are actually now using Zionist just as a slur. It's just, people are getting called Zionist left, right and centre. And his point is that Zionist is the new insult for being Jewish. That people don't give a fuck what Zionist actually means because they're just using it to insult Jewish people. And I have to say, he has put forward some really compelling evidence on the podcast. There was a sorry, I'm just reading the chat here. Tom, I think Zionists disagree with you about being labelled to eliminate a country. Yeah, okay. I'm not a Zionist, and I don't think that that's something that you can do. And obviously, I don't agree with Israel behaving that way. But that's why I just think the only way to solve it is to have a two-state, and to have both recognised and potentially have borders. Although, as someone who is in a country where we have a border, and even though it's an invisible border, I'm not claiming to have the answers at all. But it seems to me that would be the best way forward. Just your average dad. If you're streaming and don't want your tea to get cold, might I suggest getting an Ember mug? I actually think Ethan has an Ember mug. It's been a running thing in the podcast where they track the temperature of the cup. But actually, I think he does have it, because they were saying you don't put it in the dishwasher. I can't have a mug. I can't have a mug that I can't put in the dishwasher. So what I used to have is a little one of these. I have a coaster with my face on it. Let me explain that really quickly. I was at a YouTube convention and you were able to get coasters printed. And I just used my profile picture. So I had a coaster that used to heat my mug, but I broke it. Where was I? Okay. So I was like, why is Ethan getting caught in the weeds on this? Just say you're not a fucking Zionist. But I get it. He's actually making the point that people are just using the term Zionist now, online in particular, and in America in particular, to just insult people who are Jewish. And he has put forward a lot of really compelling evidence on that point. One example is Dan Blazarian was interviewed by, was it Piers Morgan? And then... Well, sorry. So there's two different points we made at the same time. One is that Zionist is an insult for anyone that's Jewish. So people are just conflating the two now. And they're just... And it's a way to be anti-Semitic to call someone a Zionist. And also that anti-Semitism in general is rising and is becoming more prevalent and almost acceptable in the United States. And I do think that's the case from what I see online, what's in the, History subreddit, and from the Dan Blazarian interview. So there's a Dan Blazarian interview where Dan Blazarian used to be famous because he was super rich and a pickup artist, I think. And now he's just on interviews saying that the Holocaust didn't happen. Okay. What? So all the comments, and Ethan read them out for 40 minutes, and it was such a tough watch. But he read out for 40 minutes like anti-Semitic comments on that. He was like, I'm going to keep reading until I find one that's not anti-Semitic. So it was fairly crazy. And yeah, so this is his point, right? His point is that people are being anti-Semitic and they're using the Israel-Palestine discourse to do so. And I do think that he's right. The Brian Boru, you have a good point. At the same time, criticism of Israel's government is often called anti-Semitic when it's just criticising the government's actions and not its religion. I totally agree with you there as well. So definitely at the start of the Israel-Palestine discussion, and when I say at the start, I kind of mean when it maybe hit the mainstream consciousness, or at least when it hit my consciousness, like after October 7th, people would push back, and pre-October 7th in particular, actually, people would push back on any criticism of Israel's behaviour as anti-Semitic. And that was definitely a narrative at the start. But I do feel he has a point that there's definitely been a swing now that it's like people do use the term Zionist very liberally. And just kind of like they're like, oh, are they Zionists? Like, it's a dog whistle. It's becoming a dog whistle. Brian Boru, my wife is a Jewish Israeli, and watching her viewpoint and opinion shift as the past 8 years transpired has been very interesting as an American, going from what would effectively perceived as pro-Israel to anti-Netanyahu. That's also a really good point. Thank you so much. Because, and this is in my notes somewhere, but yes, Ethan's wife is a Jewish Israeli woman, and part of this whole thing has been, there's been a big internet backlash against her because she served in the IDF. Now, I feel that criticism totally fucking lacks any nuance, because they were conscripted. Everyone's conscripted. It's mandatory 2-year service. She was a secretary. I totally understand that.
Welcome, Dava Scheller.
Maybe you shouldn't even use that argument, but I do think it's relevant. She was a secretary, not a soldier. You know what I'm saying? She was forced to work as a secretary in the IDF for 2 years. I really feel like it's definitely manipulated. It's being misrepresented, put it that way. Like, somebody drew a cartoon of her killing kids and put it on Twitter. Like, it's a bit nuts. Thank you so much for subscribing, Jill O'Reilly. Jill O'Reilly, she didn't go to prison and give up all her civic rights to protest, ergo she's evil. Yeah, exactly. That is the kind of lack of nuance we're talking about. And also, I've seen a lot of people say, why weren't you a conscientious objector? I don't actually know if you can do that, so I'm not going to say anything about that. But I've also seen people online talk about how Ela came from a conservative family with a strict father, and
Welcome, Red Fenian Punk.
Even if there was a way to get out of conscription in a country where it's like you grow up knowing that you're going to serve in the IDF, like, I can't imagine that somebody would be able to just be like, no, actually it's fine, and then not have any backlash from friends, family, whatever else.
Welcome, Retro Helix.
Red Fenian Punk, hello. Okay, so you said you mean the wife of that bloke from H3. Yes, that's what we're talking about. Ela Klein. She seemed pretty hardline Zionist to me. Where are you getting that from? She even requested to go to the front line, from what I know. No, she didn't request to go to the front line. So there is an old episode of the podcast where they talk about how she went on a raid once. So that's not the same thing as requesting to go to the front line. You're very welcome to go listen to the episode. I'm also not saying that she didn't do that, if that makes sense. But I also think it lacks nuance to not understand that people grow up in places where they believe certain things and they need to unlearn them when they are removed from the situation. It's basically like propaganda. You grow up, like in that episode, she referred to wherever they were going, or she referred to, I'm assuming it must have been Palestinians she was referring to, but she referred to some group as terrorists. And obviously, like, we can be like, well, they weren't terrorists or whatever. Let's pretend she wasn't talking about Hamas, and say if she was talking about, I don't know, probably was talking about Hamas. But okay, let's compare it to Ireland. So in Ireland, I'm trying to think out how to put this. I just think it's a perception thing. I think if you were to grow up in Israel being told that you're under attack constantly and I'm not saying that that's true. We know that's not true. But you grow up being told this propaganda. Why on earth would you not believe it? Does that make sense? So I feel like there has to be an element of understanding, even for like people who've served in the IDF. Like, first of all, they had to do it, and second of all, they would have been brainwashed from birth. And retrohelix, that's a good point. Like, not serving, if you were going to be able to even get out of it, it would blacklist you from society. Yes, in a society that is expected of you, absolutely. Red Fenian Punk, let me read your comment before I read it out. Okay, as far as I'm concerned, Israel isn't a real nation, just like Northern Ireland isn't. I know what you mean about nuance. When it comes to colonial settlers committing genocide, they forfeit any right to play the victim. But I know what you mean about the brainwashing of people in these colonies. They have to accept the truth after a while, though, when they see reality. Too many refuse to. Okay, no, that's fair enough. There's no conscientious objectors in the IDF. You do, however, get out of it entirely if you're Hasidic Jew. This is also the group who are the most Zionistic, while also getting out of doing their dirty work. Okay. So, right, well, there's no conscientious objectors in the IDF. So then what? Why do people keep saying that online? Why didn't you just conscientiously object? So, oh God, it's getting hot in here. The Brian Borough, having once served in the IDF does not automatically mean you're guilty of what the IDF is currently doing. I would fully agree with that. Yeah, I would agree with that as well. It is, yeah, look, it's hard. It's a very tough discussion, but I just think, sorry, I'm just catching up on the chat here. All right, let's get back on track. I'm getting distracted. This was, I am glad I had this live so that we can have this discussion. I do think it would have been easier maybe to like record it and edit it, but then it wouldn't have we wouldn't have actually been able to discuss it. So I'm glad we did it live, but I would say that it's not going to be a very rewatchable rewatch. Okay. We've kind of ended up on Ela here, but let's just knock it out. Okay. So she is Israeli. She grew up in Israel. She served in the IDF. She was a secretary. Her brother also served in the IDF. Her brother is married to Trisha Paytas. No one seems to have an issue with her brother. There is no massive hate campaign against her brother, who was a helicopter pilot. And so, like, which is it? You know what I'm saying? Like, why are people so mad at Ela for being in the Israeli army? A choice that she couldn't say no to, and for being a secretary for 2 years, when they're not mad at her brother for being a helicopter pilot. And Trisha has talked online about how he was involved. She said something about bombs, but I don't know, did he I'm not going to say drop them. I got the impression he defused them. Anyways, I just don't understand why all the hate for Ela and none for her brother who's in a similar situation. I don't understand it. It's because Ethan has kind of suffered from this from the start. Like, when I was going over that, like, groups of fans that hate him, I was like, it's kind of mad that he is like suffered from this sort of level of propaganda online for such a long time. I remember I didn't watch H3 Productions at the very start because I thought that he was like Leafy. And I don't know how I got that impression because he wasn't like Leafy at all. But I was like, oh, Leafy's a bully and so is H3. I don't know what on earth gave me that idea. So it's just kind of like this reputation precedes him kind of thing. Brian Boru, my wife served in the IDF. She's flat out against what's happening now, but she also has the liberty of being critical of it from a position of no longer being obligated to serve. Absolutely. Absolutely. And Ela has talked about how she is also against what is happening now. And the problem is that people have clip-chimped like a couple of moments to try and make it seem a different way. So, for example, they were having a conversation, and this is the thing as well, right, about long-form content. So the H3 podcast is super long-form content. It's like 3-4 hours on average. He's gone, I think Subathon's, the last one was like 8 hours. So like it can go way far the other end, but it's normally around 3 hours an episode. And so they'll have a conversation very like this, where it'll be a really long, in-depth conversation that might go off on a few tangents and come back or whatever. But when you're there for the whole thing makes sense. Then somebody will come in and just clip like a 30-second or like 5-second in this case that I'm about to talk about, clip and present it on its own, and it really changes the whole conversation and how it's represented and understood. So this particular conversation was about Israel versus Palestine. And they were talking about, and I'm sorry, I really should know the name of this person, but there was a person who was fired from Netanyahu's cabinet. Brian, this is the first time you've heard the expression clip-chimped. Wow. It doesn't even make sense to me really, clip-chimped, but I've heard it said a million times. And Hassan and H3 say it a lot. So sorry, what was I saying? Yeah, so they were talking about this person got fired from Netanyahu's cabinet. This person was a more moderate voice in his cabinet. He was trying to tell him to stop what he was doing. You want to say his name was Ben Gallen? Let's hope so. And he said something really bad back at the start of the Israel-Palestine current conflict. It's really hard to talk about this because I keep saying the start. This has been going on for like 70 years. And the thing is that the majority of people, and that's me included, had no fucking opinion on this before October 7th, 2023. And like, I know loads of people would try to pretend that they did, but like loads of people didn't. It wasn't in the mainstream consciousness pre October 7th, 2023. I remember a couple of years before that, I think I said to Alex, like, what's the story with Israel and Palestine anyway? Who I think I said something like, who are we supporting? And Alex was like, are you joking? And I was like, oh, I know nothing about it. And he was like, Palestine, we're supporting Palestine. I was like, okay. And then I like didn't think about it again until years later. And then I was doing research at the same time everyone else was. So I feel like, you know, that when I say start, I mean when it kind of hit the mainstream consciousness that everyone suddenly had an opinion on the conflict. So anyway, this person gets fired from the cabinet. They're having a conversation about it. They say it's a bad thing that he gets fired because he's a more moderate voice in the cabinet. Ela, in the context of the discussion, like she says, he's a good guy. But I was watching it live at the time and I understood in that conversation what she meant. And I didn't understand her to mean he was a good guy in general. I understood her to mean he was a more moderate voice in the guy's cabinet. And they also did not know at the time about the thing that he'd said at the very start. He'd said something really bad at the very start. And then so people again clip-chimped that and like ran with it and made them look way worse than they were. And that's why she has taken a break, because she just literally she can't say anything on the podcast without everyone jumping down her throat. So let's catch up with the chat a little bit here.
Glub glub. Thanks, Saladin.
As far as Zionist becoming a slur, what you have to realise is people in Canada and the US are just waking up to how much Zionist Israel relies on income from North America, not just from defence budgets, but from investments in everything from coffee to colleges. Yeah, no, fair enough. That actually is a good point. So, about a year ago, it was for Vlogmas 2023. At that point, had like the whole Israel-Palestine was in the public consciousness. I had an understanding of it. I'm not saying I fully understand it, but you know, I know pretty much what's in the public consciousness, what I kind of see in my Instagram algorithm, stuff like that. And so I knew I was pro-Palestine.
Thank you for the gift, the Brian Board.
In a Vlogmas video, I went into, thank you so much, guys, for subscribing and gifting. Brian Boru gifting, thank you so much.
Started.
So a year ago, anyway, for this Vlogmas video, I went into town shopping, and in town, as I was coming out of Lush, not sponsored, there was a pro-Palestine, free Palestine march passing by the door. So I was like, oh my God, jump in. So I went with the protest. We went up to government buildings. I got video of it. And I specifically remember, and I just think this is so interesting because I feel like I'd get pushback for saying this, but I specifically remember that in December 2023, it was nuclear to be publicly pro-Palestine on the American internet. I was worried with my heavily American audience at the time that I would be not attacked, but I would be heavily criticized for being at that rally. And I was like, oh God, I was actually afraid to make it the title and thumbnail of the video. That's how much, it was in the video. I was like, I'm going to put it in the video because this is important to me. But I do think I'm going to get an awful lot of backlash on this. So I'm not going to make it the title and thumbnail. Now I didn't, because I think I just have a progressive audience, but there were places anyway online where American users were calling anyone who was pro-Palestine anti-Semitic, and it's just interesting a year later that the general opinion seemingly now on American internet is pro-Palestine, and then we're cancelling constantly this American creator because he has these ties with Israel, he's married to an Israeli, he's lived in Israel. Like, it just seems very black and white to me. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is kind of what I want to talk about, why I want to talk about nuance and kind of being a bit more understanding, I guess. Red Fenian Punk, I watched Bad and Panada slamming the both of them. See, I don't hate Bad and Panada. I don't like Bad and Panada. And I don't want to watch Bad and Panada's content. He's not for me. Yeah.
Welcome, how we do it.
And I've seen his channel. He seems to really go after H3 a lot. But I don't believe that his criticisms are what's the word? What is the word? What is the word for when you're like, your criticism's coming from a fair or neutral place? Like, I think they're in bad faith. That's what I'm saying. I think he doesn't like H3, and so look, maybe I'm wrong. I just don't really I don't want to watch that guy's content, so I can't really talk on it. And I just want to be so clear, and I should have said this at the start, that my bias is that I'm a H3 fan. But as I said, if I genuinely thought that they were anti-Palestine, I would not be listening to them. So Savetta Noodle says they're pro-Palestine, they just have family in Israel and believe that all lives are sacred, lol, but certain people take that as Zionism. That is such a good point. And it's actually, thank you so much. Oh God, I've fallen very behind on the chat. But that's such a good point, because that's more the nuance that we really need here. Ela got basically backlash for saying that she was worried about her parents who were in Israel. To me, that's crazy. Of course you're going to be worried about your family. Like, you know, like, come on. Do you know what I'm saying? Come off it. So that's a bananas criticism. I think it's totally fair to worry about your family in Israel. Like, even if the country that you're from is the instigator of the conflict, they're still in a conflict. Do you know what I'm saying? Anyway, and also, I know, let's not forget as well, actually, a year ago, as I said, the way it was only entering the kind of consciousness, but immediately after October 7th, 2023, the narrative was Israel has the right to defend itself and you have to denounce Hamas before you can even talk about Palestine. And now it has totally flipped. And I just think that's really interesting. I think it's kind of hypocritical to be like, to have such a 180 in public opinion and then hold people over coals for, you know, saying they're worried about their family over. Sorry, Red Fenian Punk, you're saying things like Fenian and your chat's getting caught. So sorry, I'm just allowing it there. I didn't read the thing, but I just allowed it because it got caught from the Fenian word. Oh my God, I am so warm. Red Fenian Punk, I find it really hard to feel much sympathy for Israelis, to be brutally honest. Depends. Yeah, okay. So, depends on people, but so many of them are racist, even more than Americans. Okay. See, I've been thinking about this lately, and I kind of think that Red Fenian, don't worry about it, I allowed it. It was caught in the Twitch auto thing. Oh, I earned a hype chest. I don't even know what that is. I earned some kind of emote. Thank you for the hype train. Okay. I've been thinking about this. That's a really interesting point. I've been thinking about this lately. And I think that when you go really far right, but also when you go really far left, you can get into like, it can get too black and white. And that's what I was thinking the other day. Probably at the start of this, I was much more black and white about it. You know, free Palestine, fuck Israel kind of thing. But I now feel like I understand that, like, the people who live in Israel are not doing this. It's not their fault. It's their government's fault. Like, it's fundamentally Netanyahu's fault. I believe that Channel 5 had a video about interviewing Israelis, and they were all saying that they didn't want to have any part in this, that they wanted it to stop. So I try to avoid talking in absolutes when it comes to this, and I also try to absolve the people of any, maybe not of any wrongdoing, but I try to understand that the people have been brought up to believe that they're being persecuted, and so I try to have a bit of empathy and understanding for that fact, if that makes sense. I categorically think Netanyahu is bad, and I don't think that Israelis as a people are bad. I think what Israel, the country, is doing is awful. But at the end of the day, they're run by a dictator. Like, they're not, they're being forced to enter the army. They're being forced to do this stuff. They're being brainwashed from when they're young. I do think we need to have a little bit of
Incoming
empathy.
at break.
Or, favorite word in this stream, nuance. As someone who's never really sat down and watched a full podcast of his, he always just seems to be a professional troll. Oh, sorry, I actually think that's about Bad and Pinata, not about H3, but that could have been describing H3 as well. Sparker Crusher VCM. Oh, Spark Crusher, excuse me. Did we see the baby? Is Claire showing the baby at all? I am not. I do have a post on my Patreon talking about, with some pictures and talking about the etymology of his name. If you want to check that out, it's a free post. But I'm not going to be showing him on streams or YouTube videos and stuff like that. He may, like, he won't feature. I'm not going to not talk about him. You know what I'm saying? But he won't be a character in the vlogs, put it that way. Because I don't think it's fair to him. I think he needs to make that his decision. Red Fenian, have to disagree there. I find more nuance in the hard left. Liberals like nuance way more than we do. Wait. What's a liberal then? I thought liberals were lefties. These are all very American expressions. Leftist is American expression. Liberal. Tanky is an American expression. So I thought liberals were on the left. Or are they like centre left? No idea. But isn't there like a famous thing that's like if you're far right or you're far left, like the far sides of any political ideology end in violence? But you're fighting for what you think is right. You know. I get what you mean I know what you mean on empathy. I just find society oh god, it's
Welcome,
hard. It's actually hard to read
Lemon
with the chat maybe. Right. So I'm not qualified to have that discussion. I get what you're saying, Red Fenian. But just because, as you say, you're talking about communism and deprogramming stuff. I'm not educated enough to have that conversation. And but I take your point. Liberals are centre right. What? I did not know that. Tanky is a meaningless term used by liberals to describe communists. Okay, totally had that backwards. That's good. Bernie Sanders is like the farthest left person elected to high office and he's barely a sock to him. Yeah, but people were saying for ages he was a socialist. And Americans seem to confuse socialism and communism. Wow, we've definitely got off topic, but sure, fuck it. I don't think I'm going to be editing this down. Lemon Grab My Butt. What a fantastic username. What part of Ireland are you from? I'm from Mayo. I live in Dublin. I was so touched by the amount of Free Palestine artwork I recently saw when I went, particularly in Kilkenny. Yes, there's lots of murals and different things like that around Ireland. Yeah, lots of them. Emmeline Blake on Instagram is one. She does a lot of murals around Ireland, particularly Dublin, pro-Palestine ones. We've gotten totally got totally lost. So I kind of need to catch up a little bit with the chat. Can I ask everyone on the YouTube side of the chat to be a bit nicer and not get at each other, please? Thank you. Alrighty then. I'm very far behind. Okay, so I'm just gonna have to keep a better eye on the YouTube chat over here. I'm not allowed on Twitch to have the YouTube chat on screen. So I need to Oh, well, actually, amazing. A lot of the comments on YouTube are spam anyway. Cloud hungry demon. Speaking snark nonsense. LMFAO, cloud hungry demon. Okay. The influence on Dublin and the accent is evident. I know. And Alex says that to me all the time. It really hurts my heart. Mayo for Sam. Thank you so much, BD. Mayo for Sam. Skier. How about what Zionism means to start, lol. So I think you missed that discussion, and actually, but we got distracted, so we're going to go back to it. So, yes, so the term Zionist, we should probably look it up so that we have an actual definition. But Ethan's point is that it's being used as a dog whistle to just insult Jewish people. That's the point that he's making. And from seeing stuff online, he's not wrong. I've seen people use it just like, why are you assuming someone's a Zionist once you find out they're Jewish? You know what I'm saying? It's sussy. So there was Zaner TV, you won't get on H3, he is baiting you. I don't want to get on H3. Well, how is he baiting me? Yeah, I think I knew using the same title from a hit piece was going to be controversial. So to everyone over on YouTube, relax. I'm a fan of the History podcast, and I'm trying to have a discussion with actual nuance rather than the lack of nuance that we have seen on the internet over the last fucking year. So chill out. And no, I'm not going to talk about Conor McGregor now, although I would be interested in doing that in a different stream. Actually, I'll just answer the question. You say, what is the general reaction by the Irish public to the Conor McGregor situation? Are they behind him or against him? The majority of Irish people are not behind someone who has just been found to have raped or murdered someone, or been guilty of, or financially liable, whatever the fucking legalese word you're supposed to use. No, the Irish people are not like, go Conor McGregor. I hated Conor McGregor for a long time, as a lot of Irish people did. But it's less split now. There's a lot more people who don't like him anymore. But we're not going to get distracted with that. I can have a full conversation about that another day. I'm not keen on H3. I think the Ethan bloke is a gobshite. That's fine. That's your opinion. I'm not a regular viewer. That's fine. I do find his accusation of conflating Zionists due to be very disingenuous. So this is my point, that at first I was like, why is he getting caught up in language? Why doesn't he just say, I'm not a Zionist? But his point is that people are using the word Zionist now where they used to use the word Jew. And people are just getting called Zionist immediately when you find out someone, or you suspect someone, to be Jewish. And so what he's saying is that it's a dog whistle. It's being used now as a way to be anti-Semitic. And I totally understand what he's saying. And I think it's totally separate from the issue where back immediately after October 7th, the online kind of vibe was Israel has a right to defend itself, and if you say otherwise, you are pro-terrorist and anti-Semitic. It's a totally different point that he's making, but I actually think that he's right. Yeah, because think about it. People are calling him a Zionist constantly. He has not expressed a single Zionist view. He's just Jewish. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, there are Instagram posts, tweets, there's hours and hours and hours of content on his podcast where he talks about how he's pro-Palestine, how he thinks Netanyahu is a war criminal. Like, there's no reason you would call him Zionist. It just doesn't make sense. Unless you're trying to call him a Jew. That's his point. And as I said, I would have just dropped the language thing at the start, but now I fully understand the point that he's making, and he feels it's an important point, and I do too. Like, I think if you try and think of it in your own scenario, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying to sort of compare. You can't really compare it to Ireland. It's very hard. But like, if there was a if there was a word that people would call Irish people, why don't we use the word Fenian? I don't even know actually in what context you actually use the word Fenian. But imagine if the whole world just started calling Irish people Fenians because they were Irish. As soon as they found out someone was Irish, they were like, you're Fenian. You know what I'm saying? Do you get it? Do you sort of get it? And also, if you could explain what Fenian means, so I know, that'd be very good. To be honest, you've not heard anyone using Zionist in an anti-Semitic way, so that's fine. Oh, Red Fenian. I know Fenians and Zionists are different. Do you not understand the point I'm making, though? I'm saying I'm trying to find a comparable sort of like, what is the word? Parable? He believes Israel has a right to exist as a Jewish state. That is Zionist. It's my understanding that Zionism is much more gung-ho than that. That it is Israel has a right to exist at the expense of Palestine. I think somebody did. Did somebody post the actual definition? Zionism, a worldwide Jewish movement that resulted in the establishment and development of the State of Israel that now supports the State of Israel as a Jewish homeland. That's from dictionary.com. Interesting. Jewish homeland now is that's a strong thing. Anytime you call someone a Zionist in North America, it's immediately considered to be anti-Semitic. So it's a bit hard to pull back from that when... Oh, I can't see that. Where you have to clarify... No Zionists are a political party with a terrible history, not a religious group. With peace and love, he does take from the river to the sea as a slur, which is a notoriously Zionist take. Okay. Can he be mistaken? You know what I'm saying? Like... Do you get what I'm saying? Like, can someone have can someone like have an opinion that is maybe a misunderstanding of something without them being like the worst interpretation of what that is? Does that make sense? I don't know. We're kind of really getting caught in the weeds here, but basically, he has spoken online. Having a nuanced conversation of H3 and can't even define Zionism without Googling. Open your eyes. Zainer, relax, will ya? Like, of course, the idea of having... First of all, again, I knew using that time was going to be controversial. But the idea of having a nuanced conversation is that we're trying to not just spew out the same shite over and over again. So maybe if we're going to have a nuanced conversation, we should actually know what we're talking about. Therefore, we should be looking stuff up. That's part of the problem, is that lots of people have these conversations without ever considering what the words they're using mean. Like, ridiculous. Of course you should check. Oh, anyway. As I said, Ethan believes Netanyahu is a war criminal. He believes that he's pro-Palestine. He believes that the conflict should stop immediate and permanent ceasefire. He's pro-Palestine. I don't understand why people say he isn't, just because he has said, he lived in Israel, his wife is Israeli, his children are half Israeli. He obviously has family that live in Israel. She has said, and he has said, that they're worried about the family in Israel. Like, that's all human shit. I don't understand how that's not human shit. Don't you think the undermining of the Palestine plight is problematic when he weaponizes from the river to the sea as an attack against the Jewish people? According to him, they can't even have a slogan to represent their struggles. So maybe we should, first of all, Israeli people. So this is part of the problem. Let's separate Israeli from Jewish, because they're not one and the same, if that makes sense. But your question is, do you not think the undermining of the Palestinian plight is problematic because you feel he's weaponizing from the river to the sea as an attack against Israelis? So I don't see that, like, from the river to sea. I don't see what he sees in that, but he has explained, like, in the conversation. I think that this came from a conversation with Hassan, and Hassan did explain to him that it didn't mean what he thought it meant. He thought it meant that a one-state solution for Palestine, basically. That's what he thought it meant. And Hassan was like, no, that's not what it means. And so it's literally never been brought up again. So I don't really want to assume anything, that he believes anything about it, if that makes sense. Sorry, the chat's very fast and I'm struggling to keep up with it. Why don't we move on to another incredibly controversial topic while we're at it? Sure, fuck it. Let's keep going. So look, he is pro-Palestine. I think it's unfair, a lot of the characterization of him as not pro-Palestine. And with that, I guess, opinion in mind, technically, yeah, let's move on to another controversial topic that is related. Do I have anyone on YouTube? Oh, I can do it. Amazing. I don't even need mods. I can put people in timeout by myself. Okay. So, another criticism of Ethan, that is related to this, is he's being called Islamophobic. And this is kind of where it gets really, the whole conversation gets very muddled, because there's basically, like, each side of the conversation it's being brought back to constantly anti-Semitism versus Islamophobia. So where he got called Islamophobic is because he's having, like, I won't say an online war, but he has had public disagreements with creators who are Arab, I believe. And they've accused him then, as a result, of being anti-Palestine and also Islamophobic. But I also think that's a mischaracterization, because the criticism was only ever of their takes on Israel. It was nothing to do with Islam or anything else. So as far as I'm aware, it all started when Hassan's mod Frogan was tweeting things about Israel that Ethan didn't want to see, so he unfollowed her, and that started a whole back and forth war of words on the internet that is still going like a year later. And recently she said he was Islamophobic. But as I said, oh no, there's a baby crying. Hopefully Alex can deal with it. As I said, the criticism is over like tweets about Israel, or and not about Islam at all. So I do think that's an unfair criticism. And Lena and AB, who work for the History Podcast, they are Lena's Lebanese anyway, definitely, and I think AB is half Lebanese. And they are getting such like online hate, horrible things being put in their Instagram comments and stuff like that, because they work for Ethan, and they're like, how dare you work for an Islamophobe? And it's just like, it's just bananas. The whole thing is just bananas. Lemon grabbed my butt, especially when he doesn't check his wife when he says Gallant is a good guy. So I don't know if you were here for that, but we've actually talked about that. So that I watched that entire conversation at the time, and in the context of that conversation, where you've got to remember you've got like 6, or I'd say at least 6 people talking, and they're all kind of interrupting each other, and Ela is quite like a soft-spoken person and kind of gets talked over a little bit sometimes on the podcast, and that's important context because that's the kind of conversation that was being had. It was really like people jumping in, and she was getting cut off a bit, and in the conversation they were talking about, I believe, Gallant, the guy who got fired from Netanyahu's cabinet, and they were talking about how he's a more moderate voice, and about how at that point he was the one advocating for the war to end, for the conflict to end. And she, in the context of that conversation, as I said he was a good guy. But as I was watching the entire thing, I did not interpret that to mean he was a good guy. I interpreted it to mean what she was saying, that he was a more moderate voice in the cabinet, and it was a bad thing that he had been gotten rid of. But when you clip out like a 10-second clip and then share it around, you can make it sound a lot worse, or not quite at all what was actually meant. And also when you say he doesn't check his wife, like, he was actually talking in that moment, and she got kind of cut off by him. I don't know if he even heard that in the moment. So like that felt real harsh. And I also felt like it was also lacking in this, as I said, in the understanding that she's grown up in Israel. She's grown up believing a lot of things that she's having to actively unlearn now in a different country. And can we not like give her a little bit of understanding on that, I guess? But again, as I said, I didn't interpret it in any way during the conversation to mean he was a good person. Just that he was a more moderate voice in the cabinet. She also did come out and apologise for that, and clarify that that was what she meant, that he was a more moderate voice. And now she's off the podcast because she kind of, this topic is like toxic, and anytime there's any kind of conversation about it, there's so much backlash that I actually would also just leave the podcast if it was me. Okay. Sorry, somebody from the YouTube chat just got blocked. The YouTube chat's insane. I'm gonna have to figure out how to have a block list or something on the YouTube side. Jesus Christ. Ooh. So somebody on, hello Matthew Hall. Apologies, I'm only after seeing you now. Gloss T Up said, Ethan is a crash out, but like he's allowed to defend himself when people spreading
Welcome,
misinformation on
usually
him.
lurking.
I would too. Yes, thank you for bringing me back to some semblance of organization. I really did want to talk about this. The narrative that Ethan is crashing out on the internet is incredibly interesting to me, and it feels incredibly misleading. Here's my thoughts on it, right? So Ethan, notoriously, and again, H3 podcast listener, watcher, have way too much context. But Ethan, for a long time, was on Twitter and was very addicted to Twitter, to the point where it was negatively impacting him because Twitter's full of haters. We talked about the 5 buckets of people that hate Ethan. So Twitter's full of haters, and in general, Twitter's an awful cesspool, awful place to be, in my opinion. So he deleted his Twitter after the very funny thing where he pretended to be Elon Musk and got banned, which hilarious. Anyway, and so now he responds to people the way that he used to respond on Twitter. He will respond on Instagram, and people categorize that as crashing out. And I just think that's really interesting because it was never crashing out when he would go on Twitter and be like, fuck you. You're a dickhead and you're lying about this and the other, whatever. No one said it was crashing out when it was over on Twitter because it's like that's allowed on Twitter, basically, to like get back to that. But sorry, I just had to block someone else on YouTube.
Welcome,
Jesus
Fenway,
Christ.
204.
And I think the importance is, or not the importance, but I think the reason that people categorize it that way is actually because of the way that you're expected to behave. This is why I think it's interesting. The way you're expected to behave on a certain platform. I think that you're expected to behave on Instagram in a very measured, like, way. You know, the way Instagram is very like showing all the highlights of your life and all the pictures are very polished and all the reels are very polished and blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like you're expected to behave much more exactly G-cloth. Twitter is where you go if you want to yell at people. And he yells at people on his Instagram story. So people then categorize that as him crashing out or whatever. And I just think that's very funny because it's like he's just responding the same way that he would have done just on a different platform. And people are undermining it by saying, oh, crashing out. He's crashing out the internet. He's crashing out. And also, I just think it's interesting how we have this like mental health discussion and this mental health conversation constantly. And we're all like, yay, like you need to promote positive mental health and all this. And then the minute someone does something we don't like, we're like, oh, crashing out the internet. Like, disregard. What? Doesn't really make sense. Mac Attack, hello. Sorry, I'm just catching up with the chat here. And blocking a few more people over on YouTube. Lord above. Okay, so this is a good criticism, or one I want to talk about. Oshin, he wants to defend himself and his wife, but a channel his size responding to every criticism isn't a good aesthetic. I disagree. I think that if people are spreading misinformation, or if people make a video attacking you, then you can absolutely make one back. That's what I believe. And I don't think you should be ruled out. You should be not allowed to respond just because you have 1 million subscribers, in his case 3 million, and someone who has 50,000 has made a video on you. You're not allowed to respond. I think you're fully allowed to respond, especially if they're spreading misinformation about you. I think that's totally fair. I always have. I think there are ways that you can respond. Like Ethan will always say, don't send this person hate. We're just going to watch it and laugh at it or respond to it, depending on the context. on the show. He never drives people to like harass somebody, which other bigger creators, some of them have done. So I think there's ways that you can do it, and you shouldn't send people after people. But I do think that no matter what your size, you should be allowed to respond when people criticize you. I think that's fair. 34 months in a row, Matthew. Thank you for subscribing. His career is online. This is his real life. He's human still, and people can dehumanize these people and think they can treat them however because through a screen. Very true. You can respond, but it makes you look like you're not above the fray. I mean, fair point, yeah. But, yeah, you could say you should rise above it. That's fair.
Welcome
but
to B7200.
he's also human. And I think that people... I feel like Ethan is an everyman in a lot of ways. And I wouldn't be able to rise above it. So anytime he responds, I'm like, yes. And also it's great content. It's very enjoyable. But particularly like, for example, is the most recent response where somebody came out and misrepresented their experience on the podcast, or at least presented a very different version of it than they did originally. And he responded to that with receipts and like emails and texts and all. Like, I think that's fair enough. Definitely. But yeah, I guess that's your own personal thing. But as I said, I wouldn't be able to rise above it. I don't think if somebody was... Matthew, thank you for gifting. DB7200. Hello, welcome. And Lemon grab my butt. Yeah, you're not trying to be confrontational. I know you're joining in the newest nuance. You're saying that Hila does need to actively unlearn, but you don't believe that she's trying to. I can't. Yeah, I don't know. So I can't really speak on that. You think she's being willfully ignorant. And yeah, again, I don't know. I can't speak on that. But I take your point. Okay, let's get back to a semblance of what we're talking about. So there was one... Sarah, for real, it's a comedy show. Yeah, you're right. The Heartist, he owns being a petty diva, so I don't know why people expect him to be the biggest person when it comes to responding to criticism and misinformation. And I love it. like when they used to sound the war horn, Jesus Christ.
Welcome, Tiffany Tutrio.
Sorry, YouTube chat's insane. Like, some outrageous shit happening. I'm trying to block them. I don't have any mods on YouTube. I don't think. I'm trying to block some of the worst stuff. G-Clough, don't be the bigger person. Bring the fight.
Welcome, Tiffany Tutrio.
Listen. Point in case, this is definitely the most people you've ever had in your chat because history is in the title. Obviously. First of all, it's my first live stream on my YouTube channel ever. And second of all, obviously, that's why I put history in the title. Fuck's sake. So funny. Like, she's playing the game. How dare she? And also, that's what I'm talking about. So why wouldn't I put it in the title? Lord above. Tiffany Two Trail, welcome. You had to leave YouTube. Lol, you're here now. Welcome. It's much nicer on Twitch, I have to say. Lord above. I need to sort out some sort of block list and moderation on that YouTube side. How is anyone confused about how a guy could be frustrated with everyone demonizing and making his image all bad? Agreed. I love the show, follow along, but there's times he has opinions or jokes that I shrug off. Exactly. Like, there's times he has opinions or jokes that aren't for me. But there's no, like, they're never serious enough for me to be like, I'm going to stop listening to this podcast. And if there are I talked at the very start about Ethan's 6 buckets of haters. And I was saying there's one bucket of haters that is people who don't like him anymore, who have a genuine criticism or disagreement with him or his opinion or whatever else. And that's fine. Like, you're allowed to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. I opened the YouTube just to have a good laugh at the people raging in the comments. Oh, God. I think people trying to claim he's mentally ill or crashing out is because he's responding to people is a mischaracterization. I agree. He's always responded to people bring him up. Exactly. And he's always done it that way. And he just used to do it on a platform where it was accepted to do it that way. And now he does it on a platform where you're expected to be like an influencer all the time and be like really polished. And it's not acceptable to be unhinged on that platform, whereas on Twitter, it's totally expected. And he just responds in the same way he's always responded. And I think the crash out is just a way to invalidate his responses. And I don't think he's crashing out at all, because if you watch the podcast, he's responding in the same way he's always responded. So that's that. Let's see, any other... since the conception of his career, he's been reactionary and edgy. That's why we as fans love him. Exactly. He doesn't take shit. It's not crashing out. It's a sense of humour. Yep. I love how people are like, I miss the old H3H3. I was actually watching, so I never watched H3 Productions. I found them in the podcast era. The first podcast I ever watched was the podcast about Ela giving birth. And I actually subscribed because I was like, watching it, I was like, oh my God, this guy really loves his wife. I was like, this is amazing. Like, I just loved it. And so I subscribed and then I followed, and obviously it's changed a lot since, but like, it's now my favourite 15 hours a week. 8 to 15 hours a week. But anyway, sorry, what was I saying? Yeah, so I was watching actually over the break some H3H3 videos, the H3H3 Productions, and I don't get why people are like, I miss the old H3H. It's the same. It's the same shit, just a longer format. He's still watching videos. He's still commentating on them. He's still making skits and sketches. Like, I don't really understand the delineation. But anyway, everyone's views go up when talking about H3. Lol. Yeah, but for once, I'm like somebody who wants to defend H3 is doing it. Normally, hate videos go up and they get views by talking about H3. So this is, one of the rare times where someone's actually defending him. Chrissy, are you saying you love the war horn, aka brigading and harassment? So I don't know if you're purposely mischaracterizing that or this is a misunderstanding, but the war horn was when he would watch something that's, where somebody maybe was mischaracterizing him or it was misinformation, and he would respond to it the same way he does now. But as a joke in the studio, they had a war horn and he'd be like, we're going to war. And he always, even at that point, it was always a joke. He always said, never go and talk to these people, never go after them. We just talk about them in our own community and we don't go after people. So that's a total mischaracterization to link those two together. The war horn was literally a soundbite joke, which I thought was very funny. Yeah, he's still literally a human who makes mistakes or has bad takes sometimes. Yep. Aren't we all? Did you not have a problem with jokes like Aaron Bushnell did a good job at killing himself? So the Aaron Bushnell comments, I did, at the start of this, I said I wasn't going to go through all of the different controversies that he's had. Aaron Bushnell was one of them, which we can discuss if you want. I did say if they came up in the context of the conversation, we could discuss them. The Aaron Bushnell ones, I think I'm right, but the Aaron Bushnell comments, am I correct, were in a members only episode. or were there also ones in a public episode? He got a lot of flack for that. So basically his point was that, so Aaron Bushnell, and again, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Aaron Bushnell is the guy who self-immolated, so set himself on fire in protest of Israel's actions. And his point was that we shouldn't be, again, this is me paraphrasing, so I may not fully, I think I'm right, but please correct me if you know that if I'm mischaracterizing it. But was that, Aaron, we shouldn't be like publicizing people who kill themselves in protest, because we shouldn't be encouraging people to kill themselves in protest, essentially. And that would be a point that I would agree with. I think it's awful that is a thing. And it's happened since as well. I think it's really awful that is a form of protest people feel they need to do. That is awful. And that's how I understood that. But totally open to hearing more about it. But also, as I said, he is human. He can have bad takes. I don't have to agree with everything that's said on a comedy podcast. You know. Bye, Brian Boru. Thank you for coming. The Mac attack. I will always give people one warning in starting a flame war with me. I put it out there. I have a folder with more than 5,000 snarky, salty retorts, and no one has ever made it past 31. That's so funny. Well, it's also more that people are mad he is going after somebody that they like this time. I don't know who that's about. I presume it's about the person whose video title I stole. And I think he has every right to respond. Ethan isn't perfect, but let's not pretend he's comparable to people he goes after. It is such a relief hearing a reasonable take on this. Lamau. The H3 fanbase is trying to dox Aubrey now and are leaving horrible comments on his socials. That isn't true, Chrissy. The H3 fanbase is not doxing anyone. Like, I don't know where you're getting that from. I don't know whether the H3 snark are doing it in the name of H3 or whether it's someone else. But the H3 fanbase are not trying to dox Aubrey. And we're not, like, nobody has sent the community to leave nasty comments on Aubrey's socials. They said, don't engage, like, don't go after him. But also how closely do you hold a creator accountable for their community? If a creator has said, don't do this, and then his community do it anyway. Like, imagine it was me, right? What if I talk about, what if because I've taken this title, and even if I say, do not go to the original video with this title and leave a nasty comment. Do not do it. Because we just want to talk about it. I just wanted to steal the title for the clicks. And don't you dare. And then somebody went and was like, I saw Clisare's stream and I'm whatever. I'm going to leave a nasty comment. Like, how responsible for that would I be as a creator? I'm actually just genuinely asking the question. Because there's definitely no concerted. I'm in the history fan base. I'm in the Reddit. There is absolutely no concerted effort, and nobody in there anyway is doxing him. I don't think that's a fair characterization at all. And also, you say, how can you say it? You love it when Ethan sounds the war horn. He doesn't sound it anymore. It was a soundbite. It was like, these soundbites have a limited shelf life. The joke was funny when it was funny, and they don't use it anymore. Sarah, I really don't see any crazy comments on Aubrey's socials, just like, why did you lie? Like, that's a fair comment.
Welcome, Arca480.
Why did he lie? Didn't the old show used to be shorter? Yeah, the old podcast. Oh, his videos used to be way shorter. Yes, fair. But it's like the same. It's just, it's longer form of the same kind of thing, if that makes sense. But yeah, I suppose maybe it's the edits people miss. The people doxing and commenting are snarkers, not real fans, says Jen. Okay, there you go. Gloss tee up. I don't believe Ethan condones his fans going to hate and dox people. That's select fans' problem. Yeah, that's kind of the point I was making. Isn't it everyone's goal, at least in part, to get views? What's wrong with getting more views? Exactly. What, should I make a video that just says like live stream? Live stream. And I hope people click in. I'm talking about this. And I'm talking about this because there are so many videos lately that are anti-H3 and it is really pissing me off. So that is why I'm talking about this. And obviously if I'm talking about it, I'm going to fucking title the video what I'm talking about. So I don't see the problem. God, she's a YouTuber and she knows how to work YouTube. How fucking dare she? Chrissy, do you not have a problem with the Boston bombing video? I've got to say you got me on that one. I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. Is this the Boston bombing was quite some time ago. Is this an old controversy? Are we as consumers, as a consumer, like, do you have to be aware of every single controversy that's ever happened? Ever? You know what I'm saying? Like, I've literally no idea what you're talking about there. People like to act like their own morality is superior. We need to have room to make mistakes and grow. People are so quick to judge and hate. Let's allow people to be human and grow to be better. The level-headed takes. This is what I was kind of hoping for. A level-headed discussion. Fupa Troopa, Ethan just said it's not right to encourage suicide. That's in relation, I think, to the Aaron Bushnell stuff. Yeah, that's what I took from it as well, which I would agree with. And then I also personally don't think it's a very effective form of protest. I'm sorry if that's controversial, but I don't feel that self-immolation is a very effective form of protest because I don't know of a single time where it's achieved lasting political or policy change. But I don't know. I guess it's a very conscientious topic. Ethan said that it was dangerous to glorify these kinds of acts. Yeah, that's again what I understood from it. And I don't mean to like switch to a lighter topic so quickly, but for ages people were talking about the Aaron Bushnell comments, and I didn't know what they were talking about, and I thought that Aaron Bushnell was someone else. Who did I think he was? Oh, I thought he was the guy. So, oh God. So I don't know if I should explain jokes. Sometimes taking them out of context and then explaining them is going to sound so bad. But there's another politician.
Check out the
I can't remember it, and I won't say it right. But there was another politician that Ethan made not a controversial joke. Nobody said anything about it, but I remember thinking it was funny. But I was like, Jesus Christ! Like, it was real shock humor, funny. And I thought that's who it was about. So I was so confused for ages because I was like, that was such a long time ago. Why are people why do people get offended by that now? It turned out that's not what they were talking about. Skylark DeVries, my comment was directed to someone else. It's great that you're defending him. Only other person I've seen defending him is Papa Gut. Yes, so Papa Gut, I've started watching him over the break. What's funny about Papa Gut is he says he doesn't like Ethan, but yet his takes are so fucking reasonable on the whole thing. You know what I'm saying? So I really like that, because I feel like so many takes are not are not reasonable these days, and also quite like that. I have to say I don't believe him that he doesn't like Ethan. I think he knows way too much lore, because he's like correcting people who are doing these hate videos who obviously don't watch the podcast, and they're like saying things like that his producer Dan is socially conservative when Dan is like pretty lefty, and he's like correcting that kind of stuff. So I think he does keep up with the podcast, but I really like his reasonable takes, and I've been watching his reasonable takes on some other stuff as well, so I've been enjoying it. So yeah. Sarah, also, did they cancel the pod today? Oh no, I was hoping it was gonna be after I got off here. They cancelled the pod today because the LA fires. Oh no, are the LA fires getting really bad? I saw someone else post about them. Ethan has dark humour, always has. I don't think it makes him a bad person. Yeah, and I don't know if this is like a cultural thing, but Irish people love dark humour. So like, Ethan's humour really speaks to, I feel, Irish humour. He's very sarcastic, very dark humoured. And I didn't think that was popular in America, to be honest. So I don't know. Yeah. Maybe that's why there's such misunderstanding about the things that he says and stuff, because people don't get that dark humour. But like, excuse me, a lot of the jokes he's gotten in trouble for, like, I immediately knew they were jokes, if that makes sense. And I think that, like, if there's something that he's said that you can't reconcile with, then you are perfectly in your right to not watch him anymore and not want to engage with his content. So Chrissy, for you, that would be the Aaron Bushnell comments. You can't get over them. And so you don't have to engage with his stuff anymore, or like listen to it or watch it, or, you know, like, that's fair enough. I did say out of his six categories of people that hate Ethan, one is people who have genuine criticisms and have a problem with something he said or did that they can't reconcile with, which is fair enough. Air quality near the studio is poor and the fires are close enough to Ethan's house. He needs to stay there in case they need to evacuate their family, pets and belongings. Oh my God, that'd be so scary. God, sending love to everyone who lives in LA. Lord. Sorry, I'm just catching up on the chat. I've fallen very far behind again. Chrissy on YouTube, like, as I said, you don't have to like you don't have to like Ethan, but like, it's not that deep, you know what I mean? Like, you're in my comments saying, I'm assuming you're calling me pathetic, because I like H3. So, you know, you could just not engage with it if you hate it that much, you know. Girl, you are so pizzazz right now. They're already shitting on you on the Reddit. Okay. On which Reddit? As I said, I knew using the same title would be controversial because people will click into it expecting another hate video, and then they'll find somebody who it doesn't hate Ethan and they will get mad. I knew that would happen. But that's how you play the game on YouTube. You put up a title that people are going to click into. Scissorheads. The Warhorn was to send his fans to downvote the person's score on WikiFeet. It was a harmless joke and it stopped because he was banned from WikiFeet for doing it, lol. I had totally forgotten about the WikiFeet thing. That was very funny. That was a very funny time in the podcast history. God. And then he got banned from WikiFeet. Amazing. The Heartist, how do you feel about the Squishmallow controversy? Now we're getting into it. I don't really care, but I do have one Squishmallow. Somebody bought it for me as a present. I've got to stop shouting because I think the baby's in bed. I think I heard Alex trying to put him down there, so I need to stop shouting. Because if I wake him, Alexander will kill me. I have one Squishmallow that was bought for my son, and I really like it. I had never had one before. I wouldn't have even known what they were, only for this one that was gifted. And I was kind of surprised that so many people had such strong opinions on it. And what I thought was funny, though, was that AB is totally on Ethan's side. He said that he was really, really glad that Lena wasn't the kind of girl that liked Squishmallows. And nobody's mad at AB. I just thought that was really interesting. But yeah, I love it. I love when there's like a mini controversy like this. Like one that's actually fun and we can actually have a bit of crack with. That's what I like. So long live the Squishmallow controversy. Hopefully they'll like come back at their next episode and be like an apology to Squishmallows or whatever. Lemon grabbed my butt. There is no doxing in history. Snark, the mod team is very strict and was strict even before Ethan filed his copyright lawsuit this week, despite people unjustly suing him in the past for the same things. Great to hear there's no doxing in history, Snark. Did he file a copyright lawsuit? I thought it was just a DMCA takedown, which is not a lawsuit. But that is the exact same way that Trisha Paytas got her Snark taken down. And like, so why is it fine when Trisha does it? Like, you know what I'm saying? And if people are using clips to misrepresent you, I see no issue with that, to be honest, because that's not fair use. You're not commentating or transforming something. That's not fair use. You're just taking a clip and misrepresenting. But anyway, I just don't like snark Reddits in general. I think they're really nasty. I don't get engaged in them for anyone, even people I don't like. The reason being that there's a couple of blogs. See, Irish people probably as a whole probably don't use Reddit that much, but sorry, I won't say Irish people don't use Reddit, but what I mean is there was blogs. What are they called? I know, actually I shouldn't say what they're called, even if I can't remember it. But there was very popular blogs about influencers. Like it was like a website with like a load of threads, and it was essentially a snark website, and every influencer had a thread, or every blogger back in the day when there was blogs. So that was so nasty, and I used to read that. And it was such a horrible thing to even read that I just don't go anywhere near snark Reddits now. I don't like them. It's just such a horrible... And this is part of the reason as well that I don't normally comment on things that are incredibly controversial at the time that they're incredibly controversial. Because it's such a negative place to be on the internet. But when Blake Lively's lawsuit against Justin Baldoni came out, I was actually mad that I hadn't said anything about Blake Lively at the time that she was being cancelled. And so I thought, let's talk about it. Another Ethan meat rider, what a waste of time. Okay. So you're a meat rider if you like someone. He said yesterday that he stands by his old statement that women are to be conquered. Someone like that deserves to be held accountable for awful statements to a very large and impressionable audience, hence the snark. Ah, stop it. That's not what he said. That's not what he said. He said... He didn't say he stood by it. He said... Like that... I actually don't know exactly what the wording he used, but that's sort of... The way you're phrasing that makes it sound like... He said he had no problem with what he said. Okay, yeah, exactly. He said he was drunk on a podcast. They were talking shit and that it wasn't even that big of a deal. Okay. Like, again, I think people forget Ethan's a bit of an everyman. Have you never, like, heard someone say that? Especially, how many years ago was it? Men still say shit like that. And also, again, I can't talk about the full context because I actually haven't seen that episode. It's also kind of, yeah, okay. Unrelated point, but it is kind of funny that it's Joji in that clip because I know he doesn't want to be associated with Filthy Frank, but like the shit Filthy Frank used to do is crazy. Poopa Trooper, the videos that get traction are the H3 hate ones, actually. Exactly. So people slagging me off for having H3 in the title because, oh, H3 gets you more views. Normally, only if it's a hate video. And I'm actually fighting for my life out here trying to do the opposite. So, the fact that he has so many controversies you can't even keep track of them all says enough. You're so pathetic. Okay. Thick Moto knows how to work YouTube, has 700 subs after 3 years on YouTube. This is a grift. Yes, it's definitely a grift. My favourite podcast that I've talked about loads of times. And also, this is not my main channel. This is my live stream channel. And it was only for uploading VODs from Twitch. And now I'm live streaming on it, which I talked about at the start. So how about you go fuck yourself? Again, I'm just catching up on the chat. Oh, that was a very funny joke. In the chat. Never mind. Millie, let's not run defense for Papa Gut now. Okay, let me be clear. I was recommended some Papa Gut videos in my algorithm and I watched them, and the ones I watched, I thought his takes were reasonable. Okay? If you're going to come now and say it's some controversy from 10 years ago, I have no idea. I didn't know he existed until very recently, and I have watched like maybe 5 videos, so and not in their entirety either, so I'm not making a value judgment either way. I just enjoyed the videos I watched, that's all I'm saying. Again, sorry, I'm trying to catch up on the chat, but it has I'm very far behind. Clip chimping is to blame for this mess. If you actually watch a whole podcast, you understand the nuance. That's essentially what I'm saying, Jen. That is basically my whole point. I subscribed because your accent is based. Thank you. People think you're cloud farming, but they're just idiots. I've been watching you for a long time and I know you're a fan. Thank you, Jen. But also, clout farming. Why would it... sorry, I'm criticizing the people who think I'm doing that, right? Why is it okay when people who are against Ethan do it, but it's not okay when people who are for Ethan do it? Do you know what I'm saying? And also, what should I label the live stream something else? Irish person tries live streaming for the first time, when I knew that this was what I wanted to talk about and I had notes and all that. Should I... I did know stealing the title would be controversial, in fairness. Ooh. Again, I'm very far behind. I think I'm just going to have to catch up on YouTube. Some people on YouTube saying that the audio is low. That seems to be a YouTube only problem, because it's fine over on Twitch, and so I don't know how to fix it, to be honest. The Mac attack. I watch South Park, so I'm not easily offended, just throwing that out there. I think that also might be part of why so much of the things he gets called out for does not faze me, because I fucking love South Park. Oh God. LC, hello, and sorry, I'm very far behind the chat, so you probably came in ages ago, but I don't even know what the topic is. I just came here to see Claire really miss Vlogmas. I should have a solution for that soon. It took me a lot longer to edit than I thought it was going to be. If you can't give grace to people, you need to do some self-reflecting. That's a fair point, and maybe we could all give each other a little grace and relax. Sarah, Clisare is such a cute name. Thank you so much, Sarah. My government name is Clare, and Clisare is like a sort of nickname I got given when I was 16, and I was so desperate for a nickname that I latched onto it, because the name Claire doesn't really get good nicknames normally. Tay, I've watched every episode for the last couple of years and I just disagree. He's losing his mind. I used to be a fan, now his brain concerns me. Okay, agree to disagree. I don't think he's losing his mind. I think he's allowed to respond, and I think he responds well a lot of the time. Jen, I love you, Clisare. Hope Ethan sees this and has you call in. Ooh, I'd be too afraid. I'd be way too afraid. It's my favourite podcast. I often think like, God, I'd love to work there, and then I'm like, no, I wouldn't, because then what would I do for, like, I walk around with it in my ear all the time. Because as I said, he produces 8 to 15 hours, like arguably a week. And so I have it like on in the background all the time. It's like, I definitely think I have ADHD, but it's great to just have that in my ear constantly. So couldn't work there then, because I wouldn't have that. What I do is I put it on when the stream starts, and then I fall asleep listening to it, and then I wake up and listen to it again. Rewatch, gang. Greg, hello. It has been a long time. I hope you are well. I definitely am far behind on the chat, so apologies for that. But hello. Red Fenian, I got a bit bored with South Park after a few seasons. Seems to get edgy for the sake of it. Yeah, to be fair, I haven't kept up with it, but I think the specials have been very good. Over Christmas, I got recommended commentary videos about South Park, like really in-depth ones about like why this episode is the best ever or whatever, and I got really into watching them. I just, my YouTube algorithm has me in a chokehold, to be honest. Tay, Tay, he used to be funny. His targeted hate just doesn't feel the same. It feels like somebody's deeply wrong. Again, agree to disagree. I don't see that. I think he's still funny. And I think he goes after people who deserve to be gone after. He calls out people for things I think they deserve to be called out for. Like scams, CSGO, all that kind of stuff. And then he responds to people who talk shit about him, which I think is fair. I am for real, dog. Watch the actual episodes. So true. I love the way Americans talk. Sorry, this is such an aside, but I am for real, dog. I love the way Americans talk, and they call each other dude and everything. Niall, your Red Feeney, and your first name is Niall. I'm going to try and remember that. Greg, looking forward to seeing this Vlogmas solution. Yes, it's like a massive Vlogmas month vlog thing. Chrissy, girl, you're brainwashed. Chrissy, I've already said, like, we can agree to disagree and you don't have to like him, but like, why are you in the comments of a live stream for over an hour? Like, giving out about him? Like, get over it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's not that serious. You don't have to subscribe to him. You don't have to follow him. I've made it very clear that I like H3. You're not going to change my mind. So why are you still here? I said I haven't watched them on YouTube. I use other sites so I don't give them views. Yeah, we see if you watch other sites, I know what site you mean, but if you don't watch the full podcast, then you can't possibly have the full context. And that's most of my problem with so much of the criticism against him, is that it's clip chimped constantly. It's very annoying. Like, even Hassan, in the Hassan Ethan fight, Hassan will not respond to Ethan. Like, he won't watch the podcast, what Ethan says about him on the podcast. Instead, he'll watch Bad Empanada do a bad faith retelling of it. Like, it's so silly. I listen to the pod while I paint. It's the perfect mixture of pop culture, nerds and comedy. I agree with you, but I'm just so sick of like feeling this need to defend why I like the podcast, because there's so much misinformation. And, you know, my terminally online friends, and I mean that in that I'm terminally online, and the ones that in some way can understand that are like, oh, you still listen to H3? And I'm like, he's pro-Palestine, what the fuck? Almost got up to the chat here. Chrissy, how does everyone feel about Palestine? So Chrissy, you obviously missed the first hour of the live stream, and you obviously have no context about me or any of that, even though I also did say it at the start as well. But this is a pro-Palestine live stream. I'm a pro-Palestine creator. I'm Irish. And Ethan Klein agrees with me on everything. That Netanyahu is a war criminal. I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce Netanyahu. I think I'm saying it right, but maybe I'm not. I've only ever seen it written down. Is a war criminal. That Israel absolutely needs to stop what they're doing. We need a permanent ceasefire immediately. And that the only solution, I think that the only way that we're going to resolve this is with a 2-state solution. And Ethan agrees with me on all of those. And you can check his Twitter. He tweeted it, I'd say 4 years ago now. Or watch any of the bits where he's talked about it, because he reiterates that constantly. So. LMAO Chrissy is a troll. You might be right. I think you're right. Mango Monet, I love your accent. Thank you so much. It's Irish. I'm originally from Mayo, the county that has not won Sam in 70 something years. And now I live in Dublin, so it's very like watered down. Lemon grabbed my butt. Ethan does the exact same thing. He will never watch the full video from someone who has responded to the things he's said about him. Examples include Abba and Preach, Fresh and Fit, and many more. Don't like them, but it's the truth. He's a hypocrite. That is not the truth. Actually, he does watch the full video. Every time he watches the full video. Like the whole podcast is him responding to one video.
Welcome Katana 1988.
I'm going to be in big trouble if I have.
Welcome Katana 1988.
I don't agree with the two-state solution. That's how the treaty worked in Ireland. Partition is still there even over a century. But I don't, again, not a politician, but if Israel exists and Palestine exists, they're not gonna merge into one, like, realistically. So, isn't just making them, isn't a two-state solution, and by that I mean like both are there and they have borders and boundaries and stuff. Isn't that the only way it's gonna, the only way forward? Oh, sweaty underarms, because I am sweating. Lemon grabbed my butt. Sorry, but that is not true. He did not watch the full video of Fresh and Fit's response regarding the underage girl. Oh, please. First of all, he watched loads of it. Because I felt like it went on for fucking ever. And second of all, they were trying to say that she had water. Actually, he had them on the podcast to talk about that. They talked live on his podcast. He asked them live what the story was, and they told him a lie. No, the underage one had water in her cup. Oh, fuck off. Yeah, right. Oh, please, why are you upset? I'm not attacking you. It is a expression when I think you're being ridiculous. Oh, please. Chrissy, I did miss the first error. Cool. Almost got up to the chat now. What has he done to support Palestine recently, though? In what way? Like, he's continually expressed pro-Palestine sentiment. I don't understand what have you done to support Palestine recently? What has anyone done to support Palestine recently? Just talked about it, raised awareness. What do you want him to have done? I don't. KP Gallery. Trisha stands out in full force, fully ignoring her IDF cosplay. Yep. The Mac attack. Here's the great thing. Claire, you and I don't agree on Israel, but we don't have to agree on everything. I respect your right to be wrong. You got me there. Oh, God. Sierra, I'm sure he's donated more than anyone. I mean, she said any one of these idiots. I don't know. I don't want to say he's donated because I don't know if he has or not. And I don't want to say something that might be untrue. A smarter child, he's done as much as his son has done Lamau. Tay, promoting people who are raising funds and helping families, uplifting community, expressing positive sentiments. Yeah, but he's done those things. Like, he's expressed pro-Palestine sentiments. I don't know if he's donated, so I won't say he's donated. I don't know. I don't know. It's kind of weird, the standards we hold people to. Like, it is a comedy podcast. And he misses the mark sometimes, but it's not fair to... Well, the reason I came on was because I thought it was very unfair the way people were characterising him. I'm probably going to have to go. I think I'm keeping the baby awake. But this has been a good part 1, I suppose. Because got totally derailed from all my points. And we'll definitely have to come back to it. What does it say? You can't make highly contentious comments about very sensitive issues and fall back on its comedy podcast, with all due respect. I mean, you can if they're jokes. You know what I'm saying? Like, some of the things he's been criticised for are jokes. But as I said, the reason I wanted to start this whole thing was to talk about what I felt was an unfair characterisation of him as being anti-Palestine when he's not, when he's pro-Palestine.
Nice to meet you. I'm Millie.
And also, why are we holding like an American creator to a higher standard than we're holding public leaders and politicians? Like, Biden is funding Israel, by the way. Like, and yet Ethan Klein is getting more backlash on the internet than Biden. Trump moved the consulate in Israel to Jerusalem. Like, that was a big deal at the time. And was Trump not the first one to, like, recognize the state of Israel? And has Trump not said that when he gets back in, like, all hell's going to break loose? Like, and yet, no, Ethan Klein, though, is the problem. We hold public leaders just as accountable here in the US, just as accountable as a podcaster. But there is only so much we can do. University protesters are being treated as domestic terrorists. What else can we do? You could go online and call Ethan Klein a Zionist. I'm joking, but, like, you see what I'm saying? The energy is a bit misplaced for me. Emmy, because he's calling Hassan an anti-Semite. So he has said that Hassan fosters an allows an environment in his community that fosters anti-Semitism. And he has brought out some examples of that. So, you know, which, to be fair, is a point that Hassan has never really addressed. Christina Perkins, again, you're holding a content creator online to a higher standard than a president. You're like, it's totally fine that Biden is basically single-handedly funding the Israel. Like, the US are sending more weapons to Israel than anybody else. Also, by the way, in the UN have put forward numerous times calls for an immediate ceasefire and to basically force Israel's hand to, or attempt to force Israel's hand to enact a ceasefire. And the US has vetoed it every single time because the US is one of a handful of countries in the UN that have a total veto. So again, there are bigger problems that I don't see half as much energy spent on online than as I do on Ethan's fucking line. You know? Emmy, when Ethan calls everyone an anti-Semite, some people are going to call him a Zionist. Yes, and Ethan's point is that calling Jewish people a Zionist when you have absolutely no idea of their views on anything is kind of anti-Semitic. And I get what he's saying. I understand because I now see online people using it as an insult and as a jab, and there is factions of the internet that use it not in the way it was originally intended. I'm kind of speaking very quiet now because the baby has definitely woken up. I think I might get up. I might have to leave and go put the baby back to bed. So this is also totally devolved this live stream. So yeah. He said directly that he doesn't believe Hassan is anti-Semitic over and over, just that he platforms people who are. There you go. US government is messed up for it too, but it doesn't make Ethan's random rants on IG about him any better. They're not random rants. Again, he's not crashing out. He's just responding to what people are saying about him. The same way he used to do on Twitter. I'm sorry, I refuse to support someone who refuses to acknowledge his issues and stands on the wrong side of the genocide. You see, he doesn't though. That's my point. He doesn't. He is pro-Palestine. He has said it a million times. Like, what more can he do? Why does he have to continually prove himself? Like, why do you believe me when I say I'm pro-Palestine, but you don't believe him? That's a fair point. He's not on the wrong side of the genocide. He believes Netanyahu is a war criminal. Like, we're just repeating ourselves now. So I think we should definitely come back to this, and I probably should stick to my notes closer next time. Millie, haha, the stupid podcast that I'm defending is inconsequential. Everyone get mad at me is dumb for not targeting the larger issue instead of calling out people around me. No, I'm defending the podcast because I don't really see a huge amount of other people defending it, but I am pointing out that you're all getting super pressed about a content creator online and holding him to a higher standard than a politician is being held to. A politician who has actual power to change stuff. I just think that's weird, personally. It's like if I was mad at Blind Boy in Ireland for having an opinion about Northern Ireland, but I never engaged with any kind of local or national representation who could actually change it. I'm definitely going to have to go here and help put the baby to bed. Right, thank you so much for joining. Got very messy there towards the end. I got totally derailed by the chat. But maybe we'll come back and go again and have another chat and re-edit. I don't think this is going to be an editable down podcast. I think we'll have to go again and do a part 2. because I definitely didn't get to all my points. But thank you so much for joining. Whether you agree or don't agree, thank you for joining. And I will come back again. I just really have to go and help here. Saladin, next stream Friday. I will try and do it on Friday. I think I'll try to do the same time again. And I was planning on talking about the Justin Baldoni thing on that day, Blake Lively. But if you don't want to do that, let me know. Let me know in the Discord what we should talk about. Or maybe we won't do a part 2 on this on Friday, but we can do a part 2 another time.
Incoming ad break.
Thank you so much for joining. Bye.